Okay, so if you've ever felt trapped in a loop, the same stressful thoughts, maybe the same predictable outcomes day after day, even the same physical aches popping up, well, this deep dive is definitely for you. We are going to unpack some really fascinating source material today. It claims that the miraculous, the stuff we think of as mystical, it's maybe not so mystical after all. It might actually be mechanical.
Exactly. That's really the core of our mission today, isn't it? Yeah. To explore this pretty revolutionary idea that what we call the supernatural state, well, it might actually be our most natural, our original state of being.
A default setting, almost.
Kind of, yeah. And the sources argue the only thing really separating us from accessing that state is a set of, let's say, hardwired neurological limitations. But, and this is the key, those limits can potentially be consciously overridden.
And we're not just talking philosophy here or, inspirational quotes. This deep dive, we want to extract the scientific proof behind these claims. We're talking quantitative data, measurable changes in brain wave coherence using EEG scans, documented shifts in gene expression, actual biological markers.
And the practical, repeatable techniques.
Yeah.
The stuff people are learning in these advanced workshops that seems to be driving really profound personal change, even significant healing.
Yeah, it's like science finally meeting this ancient potential head on.
It's a fascinating convergence, truly. I mean, this ancient wisdom, the idea that our consciousness actually shapes our physical reality, our circumstances, it's now seemingly being validated by 21st century technology.
It pops up throughout history, doesn't it?
It really does. You see echoes of it everywhere. Take the story of the 11th century Tibetan yogi, Milarepa. The sources talk about how he supposedly left his handprint permanently etched into the rock of a cave in Tibet.
Wow. That's quite a powerful image. Real physical mastery.
It is. And the lesson his students apparently took from that physical demonstration was pretty profound. Basically, the confinement, limitations, they only exist within the boundaries of your own belief system.
Okay.
So fast forward 1,000 years, and now modern science, using things like quantitative EEG, epigenetic studies, it's arriving at essentially the same conclusion. Our bodies, our health, our life circumstances are deeply shaped by the consistent state of our consciousness.
That historical perspective really helps ground what can seem like, almost impossible claims sometimes. And before we dive deeper into the mechanics, we should definitely reiterate something important. The findings, the stories we're sharing today, even though some are really powerful and involve recovery from serious conditions, they're drawn from sources offering general information and inspiration. We've changed names to protect privacy, and crucially, we are absolutely not dispensing medical advice here.
No, definitely not. We're simply exploring the data presented in the sources, data on measurable biological shifts that seem to be driven by focused intention and specific practices.
Right.
Think of the source material as a call to explore your own personal possibility, but never as a replacement for conventional medical care. Always consult your doctor.
Okay, absolutely clear. So let's unpack the core paradox then. If this high-frequency creative state is supposedly our natural state, why aren't most of us operating there?
Good question.
The material argues it's because we're trapped by the past, specifically through this neurological construct they call the thinking-feeling loop.
Ah, yes, this is fundamental. This loop is presented as the root cycle of human predictability. To really get it, we have to start by defining the vocabulary, so to speak, of the body and the brain.
Okay.
So thoughts. Thoughts are the vocabulary, the language of the brain. That's the electrical side of the equation. But feelings, emotions, they're the vocabulary of the body. And this is critical. The sources define them as the chemical residue of past experiences.
Oh, interesting. So an emotion isn't just this abstract feeling. It's literally a chemical cocktail based on something that already happened.
Precisely.
Yeah.
According to this model, if you have a thought, let's say a judgmental thought or a thought about something you lack, your brain instantly releases neuropeptides and other chemical signals. These are the emotions, and they chemically match that thought.
And the body registers that first.
Yes. The body is the first place to really feel that chemical change.
Okay, and here's where the loop closes, right? This is the trap.
Right. Because the body, now bathed in that chemical state, that feeling, it signals the brain. It essentially tells the brain, hey, keep thinking thoughts that match how I'm feeling right now.
So if the feeling is stress,
the brain is prompted to find more evidence for stress, more stressful thoughts. This creates this continuous, self-perpetuating feedback loop. thinking generates feeling, and that feeling drives more of the same thinking.
And over time?
Over time, this repetitive automatic cycle hardwires a person into a specific state of being. And that state of being becomes completely anchored in the past experiences that created those feelings in the first place.
So the body literally becomes the mind of the past. That's what they mean. It's not even the conscious brain driving anymore. It's the body's kind of chemical dependence on those familiar past emotions.
That's a really accurate way to put it. When this thinking-feeling loop becomes redundant, automatic, unconscious, which, let's face it, many of our daily thought patterns and emotional reactions are, they solidify into habits.
Habits of thought, habits of feeling.
Exactly. The sources argue we might not even realize we're spending, say, 95% of our day running these programs based entirely on this past chemical conditioning. The body becomes, in a sense, chemically addicted to the past.
Wow.
And that addiction forces the person into the same predictable actions, the same reactions, and ultimately leads them towards the same predictable future. Change becomes incredibly difficult.
That sounds neurologically exhausting, just maintaining that state.
It is. And this predictability, it isn't just an internal feeling. This thinking-feeling loop, according to the sources, actually produces a measurable electromagnetic field around the body. Energy.
How so?
Every sustained thought and its corresponding emotion emits energy, a frequency. So if your habitual state of being is rooted in past trauma or those survival emotions like fear, anger, guilt, you're broadcasting that same low-frequency energy continuously out into the environment.
And the quantum field responds to that broadcast.
The idea is that the quantum field responds to the frequency you're emitting, which in turn tends to recreate circumstances that chemically match the energy you are broadcasting. You essentially attract the familiar, more the same.
That's the real kicker of being predictable, then. You might literally be manifesting more of the very thing you don't want.
That's the premise.
Okay, let's make this concrete. The source material uses the tragic case study of a woman named Anna to show how this cycle can manifest physically. It really illustrates the gravity of that chronic chemical addiction to stress.
Yes, Anna's story's powerful. Her trauma began after her husband's suicide, which understandably plunged her into intense financial and emotional crisis.
And her internal dialogue, that thinking-feeling loop, must have been relentless.
Brutal, according to the account. Thoughts like, I hate him for leaving me without a note. Why did I fail him? How could he do this to me? This kind of highly charged internal dialogue generated massive amounts of stress chemistry day in, day out.
And the body just kept absorbing that chemical onslaught?
It did. The body system started to break down under the constant assault of stress hormones. By 2008, the source says she woke up one day paralyzed from the waist down.
Oh my God.
The diagnosis was neuritis, a severe inflammation attacking the nervous system in her lower spine. This resulted in paralysis and, devastatingly, the complete loss of bladder and bowel control.
That's just unthinkable.
And it didn't stop there. The chronic stress, combined with medications perhaps, suppressed her immune system. This led to an aggressive bacterial infection that was very difficult to treat. And then finally, in 2011, she received the diagnosis of esophageal cancer.
So her body had essentially become the physical printout, the chemical mind of her past trauma and that sustained, overwhelming stress response.
That's how the source frames it, yes. The only way forward proposed was for her to fundamentally break that addiction to her old chemical self, the self defined by the trauma.
It's a powerful, albeit heartbreaking illustration of the stakes. So the mechanical question becomes, how do we break this cycle? How do we reclaim all that energy that's being perpetually funneled into fueling the past?
Well, the first step proposed is reclaiming the energy that's bonded to the known. This is a really crucial concept. Attention equals energy.
Okay.
We are constantly, often unconsciously, siphoning off our creative power by placing our attention, our focus on known people, known things, known places, or even just known time schedules and routines.
So these knowns aren't just external objects, they're actually existing, established neurological networks inside our brains, like mapped pathways.
Precisely. Every time you think about, say, your demanding boss, or replay that argument you had last week, you are literally activating and reinforcing the neural pathways associated with that memory, that known experience.
And you're feeding it energy.
Yeah. You're feeding it your energy. If your attention, your life force, essentially, is constantly flowing into those familiar known networks, then that energy is being drawn away from the present moment. It's either stuck in the past or projecting into a highly predictable, familiar future.
And that's what keeps us locked in survival mode.
That's the argument. Living perpetually in survival mode, constantly reacting to the external world, it actually forces the brain into a fragmented state.
Fragmented how?
Chronic stress makes the brain narrow its focus. You become hypervigilant, analytical, always scanning the environment for threats. This high arousal state causes the brain's electrical activity to fire in a disordered, incoherent pattern. Think of it like a chaotic lightning storm inside your head, or drummers all playing different beats.
Not harmonious.
Not at all. And when the brain is incoherent, the body's chemistry follows suit. It becomes incoherent too. So the goal, the first big step, is to consciously move beyond that narrow focus on the familiar self, your body, your identity tied to possessions or roles, even linear time, and to become, as the source puts it, nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and in no time.
Okay, that phrase, no body, no one, no thing. It sounds very abstract, almost mystical. How do we ground that for someone listening? What does that mean practically?
Practically, it means the intentional withdrawal of your attention, your energy, from those known neurological maps of the self. You stop reacting to the external knowns, the people, the problems, the environment.
You stop feeding those old neural networks.
Exactly. By doing that, you start to draw that creative energy back to yourself, back into the eternal present moment. And that present moment is where transformation actually becomes possible. That's the fundamental mechanism of meditation as described here.
Right. Which brings us neatly to changing the brain state itself. So the practice involves intentionally shifting attention off matter-like, off the body's sensations or specific problems, and onto space or energy, an open focus. What does that do neurologically? What's the measurable shift?
This shift in focus directly creates a shift in brainwave states. Our normal waking state, especially when stressed or analytical, is dominated by fast, often chaotic beta brainwaves.
Right, the busy mind.
The busy mind, exactly. By consciously shifting our focus inwards, opening our awareness, we transition the brain into slower, more synchronized, more coherent brainwave patterns, specifically alpha and theta waves.
And why are alpha and theta so important?
They're essential because these slower frequencies quiet down the analytical neocortex, the thinking brain. This allows our consciousness to move deeper into the midbrain, the limbic brain. And that's the gateway, the connection point to the autonomic nervous system, the ANS.
Ah, the ANS. That's the body's subconscious operating system, right? The system running everything we don't consciously control. Heart rate, digestion, hormone secretion, healing responses. It's like the ultimate internal housekeeper.
That's a great analogy. And that's where the real magic starts to happen, according to this model. The ANS's primary job is to create order and maintain homeostasis balance within the body.
Okay.
When the brain becomes coherent, when its electrical activity is synchronized and orderly, it effectively merges its consciousness with the intelligence of the ANS. The ANS interprets this new, coherent state not as a threat requiring a stress response, but as a signal that it's safe. It sees it as an opportunity to clean house.
So it starts optimizing things.
Yes. It begins regulating functions more efficiently, lowering stress hormones like cortisol, potentially raising growth and repair hormones like DHEA, and restoring systemic order and balance throughout the body.
So essentially, when our mind gets coherent, we kind of just get out of the way and let our body's natural healing intelligence take over.
That's the core idea.
Which explains why we see such immediate objective proof in the workshop data mentioned in the sources, doesn't it? It's not just subjective feeling.
Absolutely. The data presented suggests the mind is highly trainable in this regard. For instance, workshop participants were reportedly able to achieve sustained alpha brain wave states, holding them for 15 seconds or longer, 18% quicker by the end of just a 4-day workshop.
Wow, 18% faster in 4 days.
It demonstrates accelerated neuroplasticity. Their brains were physically becoming more coherent, more adaptable, simply through sustained mental practice. They were learning to regulate their own internal state.
That speed of change is pretty remarkable. Now, this internal transformation isn't just about sitting still in meditation, is it? The sources put a huge emphasis on the idea that we can initiate profound physical change through thought alone, using mental rehearsal.
Yes.
This kind of flies in the face of the conventional wisdom that only physical effort leads to physical results.
This is one of the most powerful scientific findings discussed. The validation for the whole premise, really. Mental practice, especially when it's coupled with an elevated emotion, can measurably change both brain structure and body physiology.
Let's look at the specific research cited. The bicep study is a fantastic example.
Right. In one study, subjects were asked to spend 12 weeks simply imagining flexing their biceps intensely without actually moving the muscle. The result: They increase their physical muscle strength by 13.5%.
Just by thinking about it.
Just by firing those neural pathways. And critically, another study highlighted that subjects using internal first-person imagery, really feeling it from the inside, increased their elbow flexor strength by 10.8%. It suggests the quality and perspective of the mental rehearsal matters.
Wait a second. So the physical exertion isn't nearly as important as the focused neurological firing. That completely changes how I might think about, say, my gym routine.
It strongly suggests that the neurological effort, the precise firing of the neural circuitry in the correct sequence, is the primary driver. If you can do that effectively through thought, the body believes the experience is actually happening physiologically.
Okay, there was another study mentioned too, right, with immobilized wrists.
Yes, fascinating one. People had their wrists immobilized in surgical casts. One group did nothing. The other group mentally practiced flexing their immobilized wrist muscles regularly. After the cast came off, the mental rehearsal group had maintained muscles that were twice as strong as the control group who did no mental practice.
Twice as strong. That's incredible. So that's the aha moment for anyone listening, right? The body, which is essentially the subconscious mind in this model, literally does not know the difference between an actual physical experience happening in the external world and an experience created purely by focused thought and elevated emotion internally.
Exactly. That's the core principle. By consciously reviewing, rehearsing, and embodying an activity or a future state with clear intention and feeling, you are forcing the brain to install new circuits, new neural hardware. You're essentially reconditioning the body to a new mind.
And signaling new genes.
And signaling new genes in new ways, creating the physiological precursors, the long-term memories of a future event before it has physically manifested.
So if I consistently mentally rehearse, being healthy, feeling courageous, experiencing financial abundance with real emotion, I am chemically and neurologically preparing my body to actually inhabit that reality. That's the underlying mechanic of belief turning into being.
It's the mechanic of becoming, yes. You're literally building the neurological framework first.
Okay, so we've talked about the mind, the brainwaves, mental rehearsal. Let's shift focus now to the body's energy system. Specifically, this idea of moving from survival mode to creation mode and how it centers on the heart. The sources talk about the body having these clusters of neurological networks.
Yes, they refer to them as mini brains, essentially. These are dense plexuses of neurons located throughout the trunk of the body, often corresponding to traditional energy centers or chakras. Each center is viewed as a hub of information, possessing its own unique chemistry, its own hormones, its own energy signature, and even its own rudimentary mind.
And these centers seem to operate in two very distinct modes: survival versus creation.
That's the framework presented. The first three centers, generally located in the lower body, are often primarily activated by those survival emotions we discussed earlier.
Right.
The first center relates to basic survival, safety, procreation. The second center is often associated with emotions like victimization, shame, guilt, suffering. And the third center is linked to ego, the drive for control, anger, frustration, competition.
And when we're stuck in that old thinking-feeling loop,
energy becomes trapped, condensed, stuck in these lower survival centers. They become energy consumers, constantly draining resources to fuel those states of fight, flight, or freeze.
And this energy drain isn't just theoretical, it has measurable physical consequences, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The sources link chronic energy depletion from these lower centers to issues like adrenal fatigue, digestive disorders, chronic pain, immune system dysfunction. The energy is essentially locked into a loop of stress chemistry.
So the goal then is to liberate that high voltage energy, get it unstuck, and move it up the body.
Precisely. To move it up into the higher centers, particularly the fourth center, the heart.
The heart, which is positioned as the ultimate game changer in this model. Not an energy consumer, but the great expander of energy.
Yes. The heart is increasingly recognized, even physiologically, as possessing a kind of intelligence. The sources often cite research from places like the Heart Math Institute, noting that the heart actually sends far more informational signals to the brain than the brain sends back down to the heart. And when we learn to consciously cultivate and sustain elevated emotions, feelings like gratitude, appreciation, kindness, compassion, love, the heart begins to beat in a highly orderly, rhythmic, coherent pattern. We call this state heart coherence.
And heart coherence is something we can actually measure objectively, often using heart rate variability or HRV monitors.
Correct. And achieving that coherence is critical. When the heart beats in this rhythmic, balanced way, it generates a powerful, measurable magnetic field, This field is significantly stronger than the brain's and actually projects several feet out from the body.
So it's broadcasting information.
It's broadcasting a coherent signal information into the environment. But crucially, internally, studies referenced in the sources show that sustaining this state of heart coherence sets in motion a cascade of at least 1,400 beneficial biochemical changes within the body.
Okay, 1,400 biochemical changes. That's a huge number. Can you give us some specifics? What kind of shifts are we talking about?
We're talking about a significant overhaul of the internal environment. For example, levels of cortisol, the primary stress hormone, tend to drop dramatically. Simultaneously, levels of DHEA, often called the mother hormone or anti-aging hormone because it's a precursor for growth and repair, tend to rise significantly.
So less stress, more growth.
Exactly. Immune function markers often improve. The entire nervous system begins to shift its balance away from sympathetic dominance, that's the fight or flight mode, towards parasympathetic dominance, which is the rest, digest, and repair mode.
Right.
This overall shift promotes biological growth, repair, and regeneration. It's the very definition of moving the body away from a state of predictable breakdown and towards a state of creation and renewal.
And all initiated simply by consciously changing the emotional state from, say, frustration or fear to genuine gratitude or appreciation. That's profound.
It is.
Now, let's get into perhaps the most intense technique mentioned in the sources, the activation of the pineal gland through a specific kind of breath work. This seems designed to liberate all that stored, trapped energy from the lower centers in one go.
Yes, this is where the biological process described starts to sound quite mystical, often drawing parallels to ancient traditions referring to Kundalini energy, but focusing on the mechanics described.
Okay.
The technique involves consciously contracting the intrinsic muscles, the lower torso and perineum. These are the deep core stabilizing muscles, while simultaneously inhaling slowly and steadily up through the spine, pulling energy upwards with your attention.
Okay, so that muscular contraction and the upward flow of breath and attention are key. What's happening physiologically?
That contraction pressurizes the system and accelerates the cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, up the spinal column. CSF isn't just water, it's a solution containing charged proteins and salts. As these charged molecules accelerate upwards, they create what's known as an inductance field.
An inductance field, like an electrical phenomenon.
Yes, it acts like a magnetic vacuum, drawing the stored electrical energy from those lower survival centers upwards along the spinal cord towards the brain.
So it pulls that trapped energy up.
Exactly. This surge of high voltage energy moves upwards. Now, the physical movement and pressure of this accelerated fluid creates a dramatic effect when it reaches the brainstem and the center of the brain. It causes the fluid to exert pressure on the tiny calcite crystals within the pineal gland.
Crystals in the pineal gland?
Yes, tiny piezoelectric crystals. Piezoelectricity means that when these crystals are mechanically stressed or compressed, they generate an electrical charge.
Like striking a quartz crystal.
Precisely. So this pressure from the CSF movement generates an electrical signal in the pineal gland.
And what does that electrical signal do within the brain structure itself?
This surge of energy into the brain, amplified by the pineal's piezoelectric effect, is described as essentially flipping a switch. It's said to open the thalamic gate. The thalamus is like the brain's central sensory relay station. It normally takes external sensory input and sends it to the cortex for processing.
Okay.
When this internal energy surge opens that gate, it allows that liberated high-voltage energy, the potent energy formerly trapped in the body's survival centers, to flood the neocortex, the thinking brain. This massive, instantaneous burst of coherent energy is associated with the production of very high-frequency gamma brainwaves.
Gamma waves. We're talking about an energy level far outside the normal waking state, right?
Yeah.
The sources mention gamma being like 160 to 190 standard deviations above normal.
Exactly. It's associated with states of superconsciousness, peak awareness, and massive information processing capacity. Bliss states, mystical experiences.
And what's the chemical result of that enormous electrical surge activating the pineal gland?
The pineal gland responds by secreting not just melatonin, but powerful melatonin metabolites, including highly potent antioxidant compounds called pinolines.
Pinolines?
Yes. These are described as supercharged antioxidants. Some research cited suggests they have anti-cancer, anti-aging, anti-inflammatory properties. But perhaps more interestingly, their chemical structure is apparently very similar to certain psychedelic compounds, and they are thought to be engineered biologically to produce incredibly lucid, profound, mystical, or even interdimensional experiences.
Wow.
The sources use vivid language, describing the subjective experience as akin to an orgasm in your head, because the sensation is reported as being overwhelmingly pleasurable, electric, and feeling more real than normal reality.
That's a potent description. It
Yeah.
really suggests that the most profound realities we can access might be internally generated, completely bypassing our reliance on external sensory data.
That's the implication.
Okay, this level of internal coherence and liberated energy brings us directly to the next logical step, the concept of actually manifesting the unknown future, moving beyond just healing the past.
Right. We shift from the internal biology to the interface with the quantum field. The model proposes that all potential futures exist in the quantum field, not as fixed things, but as waves of energy, as frequencies, as possibilities.
Okay, potentials.
To draw one of those potentials out of the field and into your physical reality, to essentially collapse the wave function into a particle and experience, you have to match its vibration. Your energy needs to resonate with the energy of that future.
And the formula for doing that, according to the sources, is this fusion of aligned thought and elevated emotion.
That's presented as the quantum formula. You need a clear intention. That's the electrical charge, the directed thought, the specific what you desire. And that needs to be married with an elevated emotion that's the magnetic charge, the energy of the coherent heart, the feeling of the future event having already happened.
So thought directs, emotion attracts.
Something like that. When those two elements, clear intention and elevated emotion, are aligned and sustained, you broadcast a whole new electromagnetic signature into the quantum field. If that signature coherently matches the frequency of a potential that already exists in the field, the idea is that the universe, the field itself, delivers the corresponding experience.
And a key point the sources emphasize is not getting bogged down in the specifics of when or how it will happen, right? Just focusing on the what and the why, the feeling.
Exactly. You define the what with your intention, you feel the why with your elevated emotion, but you surrender the how and the when to the unified field, trusting that it knows the most efficient, surprising, synchronistic path to bring it to you.
The case study of Jace really illustrates this perfectly, doesn't it? He needed a new job, was ready for a big career shift while he was actually on vacation.
Yes. He was instructed to get very clear on his intention, the conditions of the job he wanted. Creative, good pay, near the ocean, etc. But to deliberately not think about his old job or worry about who he needed to call or what steps to take.
And crucially, he had to commit fully to the feeling of his future self already having that job.
That was the core practice. He defined the specific elevated emotions he would feel after landing this dream job. Feeling empowered, feeling totally in love with life, feeling free, feeling profoundly grateful. And he's spent dedicated time every day broadcasting that specific energy signature into the field, essentially making the future his present emotional reality before it happened.
And the result was pure synchronicity, completely unexpected.
Totally. He drove down to Santa Barbara just following an intuition, walked into a random surf shop, and spontaneously struck up a conversation with a guy there who turned out to be the top surfboard fin designer in the world.
No way.
Yeah. And this designer, impressed by Jace's passion or energy, spontaneously offered him a dream job designing fins on the spot. A 1-year contract, paying significantly more than his previous position.
Without a resume, no interview, no application.
None of it. The experience literally found him because, according to the model, his sustained energetic signature matched the potential frequency of that outcome in the quantum field. His internal coherence created an external navigational miracle.
Wow. That really demonstrates the potential power of aligning with the field. But let's be real, sustaining that kind of elevated energy and clear focus can be really difficult, especially when the analytical mind, those beta brainwaves, keeps wanting to jump back in and say, but how? Why hasn't it happened yet? Is this really working?
Absolutely. The analytical mind is the biggest hurdle.
So to help people maintain this coherent state and effectively program their subconscious mind directly, the practices often involve bypassing that analytical filter.
Yes. The goal is to get past the critical faculty of the conscious mind and enter a state of heightened suggestibility. This is typically achieved when the brain is in those slower alpha or theta wave states. Suggestibility just means the ability to accept, believe, and surrender to new information or possibilities without analyzing or dismissing them.
And the sources recommend specific tools to facilitate this, like using a kaleidoscope and something called mind movies.
Correct.
The kaleidoscope is intriguing. Why specifically a kaleidoscope? What's the mechanism there?
It's fascinating. It's apparently because of its unique visual properties. non-associative, symmetrical, repeating fractal geometry. This kind of visual pattern tends to bypass the brain's normal neural circuits linked to known objects, people, places or stored memories, which are primarily processed in the more analytical left hemisphere.
So it confuses the part of the brain stuck in the known.
In a sense, yes. By focusing on these abstract, non-associative patterns, brain activity naturally begins to shift more towards the right hemisphere, which is associated with the unknown, creativity, intuition, and accessing the subconscious mind. And doing this in darkness is often recommended because darkness naturally increases melatonin production, which further enhances this suggestible deep trance state.
Okay, so you're essentially tricking the brain into lowering its analytical defenses, making it more receptive.
That's the idea. And once those defenses are down, the mind movie comes into play. This is where students create a personalized, dynamic video montage of their desired future.
Right.
They pair powerful images, short video clips, and affirmations representing their goals, like, "Wealth flows to me easily and effortlessly," or "I feel loved deeply and completely, my body is strong and healthy," with highly inspiring, emotionally evocative music.
And this combination creates future memories.
That's what the sources call them. Long-term future memories. The more potent the elevated emotion you can genuinely feel while watching your mind movie, the more real the internal experience becomes to your brain and body, and the more quickly and deeply the subconscious mind accepts this new program as reality.
So the body learns to feel grateful, feel abundant, feel healthy before the evidence shows up in the physical world. That's the ultimate mental hack, isn't it?
It's about conditioning yourself to the future instead of the past.
Okay, so you've done the internal work, the meditation, the coherence training, the subconscious programming. The final crucial step described is bringing this transformed internal state out into the external world. That seems to be the purpose of the walking meditation.
Exactly. This practice acts as the essential bridge between the inner world of creation and the outer world of expression.
How does it work?
The students first gets into their meditative state while standing, eyes closed, accessing that feeling of their future self, that elevated energy. Then they slowly open their eyes while consciously maintaining that internal state, that energy, that awareness. And then they begin to walk as their future self.
So it's not just a mental visualization while walking?
No, it's much more physiological. It requires actively, consciously altering their physical embodiment, deliberately changing their posture to reflect confidence or openness, changing their stride to be purposeful or relaxed, modifying their breathing patterns, shifting their overall attitude and how they perceive the world around them while walking. They practice walking as the wealthy person, the courageous person, the unlimited person, the healed person they intend to become.
So by consciously embodying that future personality, that future energy in the present moment, in action,
they are actively creating long-term memories of the future in their body. They're installing the new neural circuits through physical practice and conditioning the body epigenetically to align with that chosen destiny.
And we saw the profound result of this kind of sustained embodiment with Anna's story, didn't we? Her healing wasn't just mental.
Absolutely. After consistently adopting this new state of being, meditating, doing the breath work, and practicing walking as the whole healthy, healed version of herself, Anna reportedly achieved a complete reversal of her esophageal cancer and a full recovery from the neuritis paralysis. She regained full function.
Which is incredible in itself. But the source mentioned something even more specific later on, right? About her saliva glands.
Yes, this is presented as real proof of precise epigenetic control. Years later, the one lingering issue Anna had from past medications and ulcers was a severe lack of saliva production. Chronic dry mouth.
Okay, that's a very specific biological function, not something easily influenced by placebo alone, you'd think.
Exactly. And she apparently thought, quite deliberately, well, if I change these other major conditions, I should be able to signal the gene from my mouth to boost more saliva. She applied the same principles, got clear on the intention, generated the feeling of wholeness and health, focused specifically on signaling those glands during her meditations and walking practice. And within a few months, according to the account, her saliva production returned completely to normal. That is presented as a documented, precise change in gene expression, turning off old signals and turning on new ones, through sustained, focused thought and feeling alone. Moving a deeply entrenched physical symptom rooted in her past trauma completely towards health and normal function.
That really is the supernatural becoming the natural state of being, achieved through mechanism, not magic. This entire journey, from breaking the past loops to manifesting the future, seems to culminate in a deeper understanding of the nature of reality itself. This shift from thinking in terms of space-time to understanding time-space.
Yes. In our normal, everyday experience, the classical Newtonian world, we operate in what the sources call space-time. We experience linear time primarily by moving our physical body through three-dimensional space.
Like walking from the living room to the kitchen takes time because I have to cross that space.
Precisely. Separation exists. Where you are now and where you want to be seem like two distinct points of consciousness, separated by the distance of space and the duration of time needed to traverse it.
Okay, that's our standard reality.
Aywa.
But the quantum realm, the unified field, operates differently.
According to this perspective, yes. When we truly enter the unified field through deep meditation, becoming pure awareness that no body, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time state, we move into the realm of time-space. This is described as the realm of the eternal present moment.
So what does that mean, time-space?
The idea is this. In space-time, when we collapse space, by moving our awareness from separation to unity to the present moment, we experience time unfolding linearly. But in the quantum realm of time-space, the reverse happens. When you learn to collapse time, when the past and future merge into the infinite potential of the eternal, now you begin to experience spaces, plural, dimensions, possibilities.
Okay, that sounds incredibly abstract, almost impossible to really grasp intellectually.
It is difficult to grasp by the analytical mind, which is why the sources often rely on anecdotes of subjective experience to bridge the gap.
Right, like the author's own mystical experience described.
Yes. He recounted being in a very deep meditative state in that time-space realm and having the distinct experience of observing different aspects of himself simultaneously. He saw his 7-year-old self sick with a fever and suffering in the past, and at the same moment, he perceived his future, evolved self walking barefoot on cold stone in the winter, but feeling filled with an overwhelming electric sense of love and wholeness.
All existing at the same time, in the eternal now.
All accessible from that single point of awareness in the present. It suggests that these possible realities, these infinite versions of me, perhaps already exist as potential patterns in the quantum field. And by shifting our consciousness, our energy, our focus, we essentially tune into them, make them real, right here, right now.
That's a mind-bending concept. And this realization, this interconnectedness, it doesn't just apply to our different selves across time, does it? It extends outwards to a collective scale, the idea of collective consciousness, and something called project coherence.
Exactly. We know from physics, like Bell test experiments, that particles that have interacted remain connected or entangled non-locally, regardless of distance. This suggests an underlying invisible field of information connecting all matter.
And this field seems to be influenced by large-scale forces.
Yes. We know the Earth itself has a measurable electromagnetic field, the Schumann resonance, which typically oscillates around 7.83 hertz. Interestingly, that frequency falls right within the range of coherent alpha and theta brainwaves, the states achieved in deep meditation.
Huh. And this field is influenced by things like solar activity.
It appears so. Decades ago, a scientist named Alexander Chizetsky found correlations between intense solar flares and periods of increased human excitability, social unrest, even major historical events. It suggested a link between cosmic energy and collective human behavior.
And more recently, there's the Global Consciousness Project data.
Right. That project used random event generators, REGs, placed around the world. These devices normally produce completely random outputs. However, researchers observed statistically significant deviations from randomness during moments of massive, globally synchronized human emotional focus, like the events of 9/11.
Suggesting that intense collective human emotion can actually imprint order onto the background field.
That's the interpretation.
Yeah.
It points towards this idea that we are all interconnected non-locally through an invisible field of information, and our collective consciousness influences that field.
So Project Coherence took this idea and tried to apply it intentionally. Could a focus group of people generating coherent energy actually produce a measurable non-local effect on other people, even at a distance?
The results reported in the sources are quite remarkable. They conducted studies where a large group of trained meditators focus intently on sustaining elevated emotions like love, gratitude, compassion, and directed that coherent energy with the specific intention of bringing good fortune and well-being to a separate group of untrained participants located elsewhere who were wearing HRV monitors.
And what happened?
The data reportedly showed that the hearts of the untrained participants spontaneously went into a state of coherence measured by their HRV at the exact same time the collective focus group was broadcasting those elevated coherent emotions and intentions towards them.
Wow, that is stunning. So no physical connection, no communication, yet their heart rhythms synchronized with the intention being sent.
That's what the data suggested. It implies that elevated, coherent human emotions broadcast a tangible signal, an energy that can non-locally influence the autonomic nervous system of others, potentially family members, co-workers, people in our community, promoting biological balance, coherence, and wholeness in them, possibly without them even being consciously aware of it.
So we can intentionally contribute order and healing to the collective field simply by maintaining our own internal coherence. That's a powerful responsibility.
It shifts the focus from trying to change the world out there to changing our world in here, knowing it has an effect.
Okay, let's wrap up this incredible journey with one final anecdote from the sources. It beautifully ties together the personal healing potential with the connection to this larger, perhaps divine energy field accessed through these high-frequency states. This is Stacy's story.
Ah, yes, Stacy. She had been suffering for 3 years with a meningioma tumor located on her acoustic nerve. This caused debilitating pain and resulted in about 70% hearing loss in one ear.
3 years of that sounds awful.
She struggled immensely until she attended one of the advanced workshops that focused specifically on that pineal gland activation breath technique we discussed earlier. She practiced diligently, went deep into meditation, into that time-space realm.
And during one of these deep meditations,
She reported a sudden, instantaneous, profound experience. In her words, this amazing flash of light consumed the left side of my head. She described it vividly as a brilliant bluish-white light entering her affected ear.
just light.
Light, accompanied by what she described as the most divine, loving feeling she had ever experienced in her life, feeling like the hand of God was literally touching her.
Wow.
And in that precise moment of complete energetic connection, surrender, and coherence, several things happened instantly. Her sinuses, which had been chronically congested, completely cleared. Tension she held in her shoulder vanished. And for the first time in 3 long years, she could hear crystal clear out of her previously deafened ear. She even reported hearing what she perceived as the celestial sound of angels.
And the hearing loss, the pain.
Vanished. Completely gone in that instant, never returned. It showcases a seemingly complete, instantaneous biological upgrade, driven potentially by the overwhelming energy and organizing information received directly from the unified field, accessed via that peak state involving the pineal gland.
What an absolutely incredible illustration of the body's potential to respond instantaneously to coherence and that higher frequency, that connection to the divine, however one defines it.
It really brings all the concepts together.
So we've covered a massive amount of ground today, haven't we? We went from understanding the neurological trap of the past, that thinking-feeling loop, through the specific mechanics of achieving internal change, modulating brain waves, the power of mental rehearsal, achieving heart coherence.
And activating the body's innate energy systems.
Right. And then finally into accessing the quantum realm of creation through that powerful combination of clear intention and elevated emotion.
It's quite a journey from predictable past to unpredictable future.
And I think the final, perhaps most important truth that emerges from all the sources we looked at is this. The greatest transformation isn't really about what you get in the external world, the healing, the new job, the relationship, the money, although those things often follow. The real change is who you become in the process of achieving that coherence and embodying that future self.
Absolutely. The goal, as the sources consistently emphasize, is to progress beyond just acquiring knowledge, the intellectual understanding of these concepts, like we've discussed today. The next step is application, turning that knowledge into direct experience, embodying it, feeling it in the body. And ultimately, the goal is wisdom, where these principles become so integrated that you live them naturally, effortlessly, as your new state of being.
Knowledge to experience to wisdom. Love that. Okay, so here is the provocative thought we'd like to leave you, the listener, with today. It's tailored specifically to the often chaotic and fear-driven world we find ourselves navigating right now.
Okay.
The sources stress that true leadership, true change-making, it never really needs external validation or confirmation from the old structures. It fundamentally requires embodying and sustaining a new state of being internally. We know the media, social structures often relentlessly program us with messages of fear, separation, lack, constantly urging us to operate from those reactive, survival-based beta brainwaves.
It's constant bombardment.
So if you successfully learn to cultivate and embody peace, coherence, love, wholeness, internally becoming that nobody, no one, no thing in meditation, and then walking as your future self, you inevitably show up as unpredictable to the old fear-based systems. And as we heard, your coherence non-locally influences those around you towards order and balance. So the question for you is, what specific aspect of your future self, what single quality, what new state of being will you commit to truly practicing and embodying today, right now, knowing that this individual internal shift is your most powerful contribution to the collective evolutionary jump we're all part of?
A powerful question to ponder. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into decoding the supernatural state.
We hope it gave you a lot to think about. We'll see you next time.